Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you on behalf of the DeKalb County Library System one more time. And we have another jewelry program for you. And I am just in detachable, interchangeable mode, apparently, because we're going to do another interchangeable project. Today, we're going to do a really very simple bracelet. It's unisex. You can make it, because it's interchangeable, you can make it to suit you or your boyfriend or your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or whomever you choose. And this is what we're making. We're just making a nice band. It's going to be a coil band, and then you can put any attachment on it that you like. And the attachment is going to be like your clasp. So this is going to be your clasp, and you just hook it and close it, and that's your bracelet. And this is the main part of it. I kind of got the idea from those just, they're just a band of silver or gold with a little ball on the end, and you just put them on and you squeeze them, and they adjust to whatever size your wrist is. So this is the same kind of premise, kind of idea, but I added the interchangeable option to it, just so I could have something a little bit different and unique, because I just like to do that. So this is what I came up with. You can change it to any color, any bead that you want. Just make whatever bead that you want to put on there, and that's it. It just serves as the fastening instead of having a hook fastening. Oops, a hook clasp. Ouch! Instead of having a hook clasp, you have a hook focal. You just hook it on there, and there you go. There's your bracelet. I mean, it is so neat. I shouldn't be showing you these beads. These are part of another project, and I'm giving you a preview of what you're going to see. But it fits so beautifully in with what I wanted to show you about how this works that I couldn't resist. But anyway, that's what we're making today. I should leave that on there. But I really wanted to show you the black and white one, simply because I thought that was more geared toward guys. I have another one somewhere. What did I do with that other bead? Oh, there it is. Come out. Come out wherever you are. And you can decide on the size that you want. Basically, what I did was measure my wrist and then subtract off. Oh, that's kind of awesome. Isn't that neat? Ooh, cool beans. Anyway, what you're going to do is make the bracelet part, which is the band, this band, the size of your wrist, and see it's got a piece of wire in there. Ha ha, that's the trick. You're going to make this the size of your wrist minus whatever size beads you want to put on, and it's a bangle. I know guys don't like things that flip and flop around a lot. So if you're doing it, if you're a guy doing it, or if you're doing it for a guy, you want to be a little bit more exact in your measurements. But it's supposed to be a bangle, so it's not supposed to be tight against your wrist. So you don't have to stick with one size. You can make different sized items. These are different sizes. That's a little smaller. And it just depends on how you like your bracelet to fit. So what you're going to do is determine what size beads you think you might want to use for this, and how much wiggle room you want to allow in your bracelet in regard to how big you want it to be, how much you don't mind it dropping down on your wrist or over your hand. Measure that amount out, and then subtract the size of your beads that you're going to be using. And that will tell you how much band you want. And I put little beads on the end here, just as a decorative touch. You don't have to do that, but that's the way I did it. I've got my little coiled band, and then I have a cap over the end, and then I put a little bead on the cap, and then I have my hooks. So those figure in too. So you've got the side, the length of your band, plus the size, whatever size beads you decide to use, if you use them, and then the hook. And those all make up whatever the length of your bracelet is going to be, or the circumference of your bracelet is going to be. And then, of course, you add in whatever hooked vocal bead you want to put on there. So I like to err on the side of a little bit bigger and then go from that. So let me go ahead and let's get started. You're going to use your usual tools, your cutters, round nose pliers, and square pliers or flat pliers. And you can use these pointier ones, or you can use these really flat ones. These are easier to use for most things, but sometimes these come in handy too. But just the usual three are what we need for this, and a ruler or some kind of a measuring device so that you can measure. You want 20 gauge wire, and this does use quite a bit of wire because you're coiling. I used about three. I measured out. What I did was take about 2 inches of wire, then coiled it, and then measured how big that was. And it took me 3 inches of wire for every inch. No, it was more than that. Yeah, it was about 3 inches of wire per inch. So you could just imagine that you're going to need at least give yourself at least a good 3 yards. The easiest thing to do, leave it on the spool. Don't cut it. Leave it on the spool. Cut it once you finish all of your coiling, because then that way you don't have to worry about it. You can roll it, you can coil it, and measure it as you go along to make sure you have enough for your band, and then cut it off at the end. Because it does take quite a bit. It took me this. No, I'm cheating. I'm showing you that I already have it done. This took me, this 6.5 inch piece of wire took about 3 yards of wire. So leave it on the spool. Let's get started. Let's get going. And what am I doing here? Oops, that wasn't what I meant to do. I meant to go to my other camera. Let's get cracking. Okay, so I've got my tools. I've got my wire. I've got my little measuring device, and I'm going to show you how this works. So what you want to do is decide what size coil you want. Now, I'm going to go a little bit smaller than this, but in order to make this size coil, which is approximately a 1/4 inch, I don't know if you can see that, it's about a 1/4 inch. And if you want it for a guy, you might want a kind of a wider one. But I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I want to make mine a little bit closer to somewhere between 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch, and just a little bit kind of daintier. So what I'm going to do, instead of going all the way to the very back of my pliers, like I did for this one, I'm going to go about halfway down my pliers instead. So what I'm going to do is take my wire, very simple process, find the place that I want to start my coiling, and just start coiling. So what I'm going to do is I have the tip of my pliers the tip of my wire in my pliers, and I just start to rotate. And now notice that my wire, the tail end of my wire is going out towards the tip of my pliers. Now you can mark your pliers to make sure that your wire doesn't move or shift so that you have a nice uniform sized coil. I just like to hold it so that it doesn't move too much. And again, the tail end of my wire is closest to the tip of my pliers. So I'm just coiling, coiling, coiling. Last time I did this, I started singing the rawhide song. I'm not doing that today because that's embarrassing. People come back and say, your videos are so funny. It's kind of embarrassing. Anyway, so you just coil, you just keep on coiling. And again, in order to get an idea of how much you need, I would give myself a good 3 inches of wire, I think, and make a coil, and then measure how big your coil is, multiply that size times the, how many inches you need, and that'll tell you how many yards you need for your bracelet. So there is my coil started. And I think I'm going to demonstrate what I just said. I'm going to cut this off. And I'm going to cut a piece of wire just to give you a little demonstration. So I'm going to take 3 inches of wire here, cut it off. Don't worry, I can use it later. I'm not wasting. This is going to be used later too. I can always find a use for it. Okay, so I've got 3 inches of wire here. I'm going to coil that up and then see how much that ends up being. So coiling that. Again, the tip of my wire drifts out towards the tip of my pliers. You want to make sure that you're coiling beside each other, nice and close, but making sure that the wire's not on top of it itself. So I'm coming up towards the end of my wire. And that's another reason to keep it on the spool, is because once you start getting to the tip, it's kind of hard to keep turning it because you're going to stick yourself. Okay, so I'm taking that off of there. Let's see if I can push that end down so I don't lose that. And let's see how much I ended up with. So I had 3 inches to start, and that 3 inches came to about just under 1/4 of an inch, just under 1/4 of an inch. That is awesome. So for about 12 inches of straight wire, a little bit more than 12 because this isn't quite 1/4, but a little more than 12 inches per inch of coil. 12 inches of straight wire equals 1 inch of coil. Holy cow, that's a lot. So anyway, as is my habit, I already have my coil made. Boo-boo, ta-da! So what we're going to do now, I'm going to show you how to finish everything off. So I've got my coil made. What I want to do is take my little end here and make sure it's nice and close. I put some of that little stuff on to keep my pliers from scratching my wire up and it's starting to wear off. That's why you see this weird white stuff on my pliers. It's wearing off a little bit. It's been treated very rough and tumble. And what you do is just peel it off and put some more on. No biggie. It works. It does the trick. So I'm tucking these ends to the inside here a little bit so they're not sticking up. So this end, I'm just going to tuck down. There we go, like that. So now I've got that tucked to the inside. That side tucked. Oops, it's not all the way down in there. Let's get down in there so that you're not sticking up and in my way. There we go. So now that's tucked down inside. Make sure everything's nice and straight here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is add our beads. And I picked a couple of little silver beads here. Little corrugated beads. You can use any bead that you would like. And these are about, what's 6-7 millimeter. Yeah, they're a little bigger. Actually, these are, yeah, they're not quite 8. They're about 7 millimeter beads. And I'm using these caps. And they look pretty big, but I got the kind of cap that I can put on here and then squeeze down over my coil. So what I'm using is a nicely filigreed cap. You can use any kind of bead cap that you like. This is just the kind that I'm using. So what I want to do is take my wire. I need to measure off an expanse of wire that I can use to make the hook on the end, on each end. And what I'm going to do on this one, because I wanted it just to be a little bit more plain for a guy, I didn't decorate the hook, but I think I'm going to decorate the hook a little bit on this one. So we're going to play around. So what I want to do is, oh, the other thing is, I've already mentioned this, but make sure that you measure your wire before you cut it, measure your coil, determine how big the beads are that you want to use, that you want to add to this, and add all of that up in addition to what the size is of the bead that you're going to put on the end. And that should make the total of the expanse of your bracelet. I have 5.5 inches here. My wrist is about 7.5 inches. And I'm figuring with my little bead and my hook, that's going to make almost another inch on each side. So that'll be 7.5. And then that'll be 6.5. And then my bead and the wrap is going to give me another probably 3/4 of an inch to an inch. So that's 5.5, 6.5, 7.5. It just depends. So I'm hoping that I'm good here. So 5.5 here. And this is going to make it 6. Yeah, this is going to be another a little over 1/2 inch because I'm going to put a little coil on the end of my loop. So that's going to make it at least another 1/2 to 5/8 of an inch. So I'm figuring that this 5.5 plus 6, 7.25, and then another inch or so for my bead will make it about 7.75. And if I use a bigger bead later, like this, is about 1.5 inches all the way across. It'll be closer to 8. So I'm figuring it's going to be around 7.75 to 8, maybe 8.25 inches, and I'll have a nice bangle. Not too tight, but not too floppy either. Okay, so anyway, enough about those measurements. So now, more measurements, because you need to measure out your wire. So what I want to do is give myself the expanse of whatever my coil is, And I'm going to give myself another good 2 inches on each end because I'm going to decorate my hook a little bit. So give yourself I'm going to give myself 2 inches. And if I need to cut some off, I can. But if you cut it too short, you're kind of out of luck. So I know I need at least a 1/2 inch just for the hook part. And then I need another 3/8 of an inch or so for the bead that I'm going to put on. So there's a good inch right there. And then I'm going to make some decoration. So I'm going to give myself 2 inches on each side. So I've got 5.5 here. I'm going to give myself that. Plus another 4 inches. And I'm going to give myself a 1/2 inch just to be safe. An additional 1/2 inch. Remeasure. 5.5. 7.5. 2 more inches. And another 2 inches. And another 1/2 inch. So that is what I'm getting here. Gives me something to work with. You don't have to worry about this being super straight because it's going inside of your coil. Nobody is going to see it. So that goes inside your coil, and then we're going to make our loop and put our ball on the end. It's probably easier to just go ahead and do the one end first without putting anything on it. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to make my one it's kind of hard to grip. Okay, I'm going to make my one hook. And the way I'm going to do that is to grip the tip of my wire with the tip of my pliers. Yep, I'm going to use these because that's a little bit too gummy for me. Sorry about the shaky. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to grip the tip of my wire with the tip of my pliers. I'm going to give myself a little tiny loop. Just loop that. I'm going to go 2/3 of the way around because I just want a little tiny loop. And then I'm going to squish that closed. So here's the bottom of my loop and here's the top. I'm going to squish the bottom up towards the top to just close it up. You have to be very patient with yourself so that you don't knock it out of whack. So there, I've got a nice little nub on the end of there. You can see that. Oh, glare. So there's that. And then I'm going to take my round nose pliers. And I'm going to slide them down. I'm going to make my loop about not too large. So I'm going to go down about 3/4 of the way down my pliers and bring the long tail of my wire around to touch the tip of my loop. And now for the decorative part. I'm going to go down about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to make a little coil just to have something decorative. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give myself about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to go down about 1/4 of an inch below my loop, and I'm going to wrap the long tail into a little loop like so. So now I have a little loop on the bottom, and then I'm going to grasp that loop on the side, pull it around until it's really nice and small. And now I'm going to start to coil. I'm just going to wrap the wire around itself until I build a coil. Let's go this way. Now I have a little coil with my shepherd's hook. So there we have that. Nice little coil. And it's coming from underneath. See that? There we go. Yep. Okay, so now I'm going to slide on my bead. Like so. And then put my wire in my coil. Get in there. There we go. So there we go. There's one end of my bracelet. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm going to start with my coil this time. Let me put my bead on. This is going to be a little more challenging because now you have all of these things that you have to work around, but it's still doable. Now I want my loop to go in the same direction as this loop. So I just want to keep an eye on that. And that's fixable in case it doesn't turn out that way, but I mean, don't worry too much about it. It's an easy fix. But my shepherd's hook is going to be going this way. So there's my shepherd's hook, and my loop is going to go around the other way. So that is what I want to keep in mind. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually make my spiral. Let me get this in order here for a second. Hold on just a second. Let me get this adjusted. All right, got this off. Now for my coil, I'm going to go up about a quarter of a way up my wire, and I'm going to start my loop. These other ones. Make a little loop in here. Right there. And I'm going to start my coiling. And again, this is going to be the challenging part because you have to get around the ball. And you do not have to do this. I'm just doing it because I think it would be a pretty finish. for my piece. And once you get it started, it's a little easier. Just wrapping the wire around itself. You can see the coil starting to form. I think should have given myself a little extra wire because this coil is a little bigger than the other one, but that's okay. So now I've got about 3/4 of an inch of wire to use for my shepherd's hook. I need a good 1/2 inch or so. So that's good, that'll work. Gives me a little wiggle room here. So now I'm going to take the tip of my pliers, grab the tip of my wire, and go down and under to make my loop. So what I'm doing is rotating in the same direction as my coil. And then once I've got it about 3/4 of the way around, I'm going to squeeze my loop until I have just a little nub there. And that way it'll fit in whatever size hole you make for the link of your bead. And now I'm going to make my shepherd's hook. Going about halfway down my pliers, grabbing my loop right there just underneath the loop. Rotate my pliers until I have a nice little hook. And there's my second hook. Not too bad. This one could have been a little bit smaller, or this one could have been a little bit bigger, but I am accepting it the way it is. There we go. So there's my band. And so now we want to shape it. So I like to take something like this and just wrap my coil around it. Yeah, great. You can shape it with your fingers too. I'm going to give it a start so that it's a little easier to deal with. And wrap. It around. And needless to say, this is a lot smaller than my arm, but it gives me a nice start on the wrapping process. And then I'm going to just finish it off with my fingers. Just kind of shape it. And now remember, your arm is not round. Your arm is usually kind of a little oval shape, the circumference, I mean. So you don't want it to be perfectly round. Making a little bangle. And now if I made my hook decorative enough, or just made one a hook and one a loop, I wouldn't even have to put a bead in the center. I could just wear it like this, and that would be perfectly fine. Let's get this shaped. There we go. Okay, so now it's time for the bead part. And a little bit more. Okay, so now I can just show you with this one, but I'm going to show you how to do your bead. This is what I have. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to pick a bead, and I am going to finish this off. Let me try this on my arm, see how big it is. Yeah. There we go. Let's make my bead. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I have a few random beads here. That's pretty. I have a little heart. It matches my shirt. Yay. But then I saw this one and I went, oh, that's so neat. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. I mean, there's no reason I'm not going to make this one too. I'm going to make several of them because it's supposed to be interchangeable, right? I mean, why stick with just one when I can have several? That's the whole point of this thing. Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take my wire and just make a nice wrapped bead here. What I like to do is put my bead in there and then decide how much of a wrap I want to give it. I like to give myself at least a good 1.5 inches so that I have enough to play with regarding how big a kind of a wrap I want on there, or a scarf or whatever I want to put on it. And so what I'm going to do, we're going to make a nice wrapped loop. I'm going to give myself a good 1.5 inches on each side. And it's easier for me to put it in and measure it from the ends and trying to measure the bead, then measure the blah, blah, blah. So this, okay, I've got what I need here for my wrap. Cut that off. It's probably more than I need. That's okay. This is not sterling silver. I'm not worried about it. Okay, so what I'm going to do, put that in, find my center, as close as I can get to the center here. And I'm going to bend that back, and bend this one back, and I'm going to start my wrap. So I've got those bent so that the bead won't come off. And I'm going to start my wrapping. So I'm going to take I've got a little bit of a space here underneath, so I have some room to wrap. I could even give myself a little bit more space. Now I have room on both sides to put my wrap. So I've got a little bend in there. I'm going to take my pliers and slide it under my wire, my long tail of wire. And I want to make sure that I give myself enough of a loop so that my hook will fit in it. So I'm going to go about halfway down my pliers, give myself a nice sized loop. I'm going to take the tail of my pliers and bring it over the top of my wire, the tail of my wire, bring it over the top of my pliers and bring it all the way to the back underneath my pliers. until I have a loop. So there's my loop. I can check it out. I know that this is going to fit in there with no problem. And so there's my loop, and I'm just going to close it up. I'm going to wrap it. So I'm going to grasp that with my pliers, and I'm just going to start wrapping. And I'm going to push this down against my bead because I think I want to put a little cap on my bead. So I need to hold that steady. Oh, and I think I'm going to need my pliers because this wire is very nice and strong, and I'm using 20 gauge. It's not even that heavy. I'm just going to wrap that around. And I'm going to take my pliers and close up my loops a little bit so that they're a little closer together. There, so it's a little neater. And I'm going to finish that up. I think that's enough. Neaten that up a little more. And I can either cut that off. I think I'm going to cut it. Let's cut that tail off. I don't think I need to do any more wrapping on that. And I want to take my tail, this tail end, and turn it away from me because I don't want it to fly up in my face. And I really think the best thing that you can do is take that tail end and turn it down into something and then clip it off and let it drop inside. Then you don't have to worry about flying wire because that can fly across the room at a high rate of speed and do some damage or end up in your carpet and all of that not so nice stuff. So I'm going to take this little tail end here and I'm going to squeeze it down with my pliers so that it won't catch on anything. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Squeeze these together a little bit so that they're a little tighter. Straighten out my loop a little bit. Make sure that end is down. Just get everything nice and neat. Then I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. So there's my wire off to the side here. I'm going to slide my pliers under the expansive wire that I have here. And I'm going to take the tail of my wire, wrap it over the top until I have it going down the side of my bead. Then I'm going to turn my pliers and bring the wire all the way around under my pliers until I have a loop. I know I probably over-explain a little bit, but I just want to make sure you've got it. Then I can either hold the loop with the pliers inside or hold it with the pliers on the side like I did on this side. Since I showed you how to grip it on the side and wrap on this side, I'm going to show you how to wrap it with the pliers inside the loop this time. So the pliers are inside the loop and I just wrap the tail around my wire in between the pliers and the bead. And I just keep wrapping until I have no wire left or until I'm ready to cut it off. So I have a little tiny tail of wire there. I'm just going to go ahead and push that down. I like to give it a little curve. Makes it easier to push down. And take my pliers and push that down against the rest of the wire. And neaten up my loop there and my wraps. Check my loop and make sure that they're both going in the same direction. They are. Ta-da. And here we go. Yeah. Let's try it on for size. Try on my bracelet. Please don't be too small because that would be embarrassing. Get around there. There we go. Always trying to get something on camera is always such a challenge because I'm trying to make sure you can see what I'm doing, but trying to make sure I can see what I'm doing. Let's try that again. Okay, so here we go. Flippity floppity. I think I'm on camera. Yes, I am. There. Oh, my goodness. And you know why that was? Because this is the wrong one. This is the wrong one. This is the other one that I did, and it's smaller. It takes a bigger bead. So you can see what that one looks like with the big one. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like with the one that I just made, which is a little bit bigger. Oh my goodness. Why did I do this to myself? This one takes the bigger beads. It has the smaller band and the bigger beads. Oh my gosh. This humiliation on camera. I hate on camera humiliation. It happens a lot. I'm turning this off so I can get this off my arm without you laughing at me. Be right back. All right, yeah, get it all out of your system. I know you're laughing at me. I can hear you. Anyway, here's the one we just made as compared to this smaller one. Here's the one we just made with the nice little decorative swan-like hook. You put it on the one side, put it on my arm. Please work, I don't want to be embarrassed again. And okay. This one's a lot bigger. Hook it on, and there we go. Yeah, this one's a lot bigger. I'm probably gonna cut that down a little bit, but yeah, no, you know what, maybe not. I think that's good. I don't think that's bad at all. That is really cute. Ta-da! I like it. I do think what I'm going to do though is turn it so that my swans are on their side instead of pointing straight down. I think that's a good idea. Let's try that, see what it looks like. So now I've got my swans on the side so I can see the decorative coil that I've got going on. Come on, let's Stop it. Cut it out. Work with me here. It's really not that hard to get on. I'm just watching the camera and trying to make sure I'm on camera. And that's really throwing me off. There we go. Yay! Oh my goodness. I love you. It is very dangly, but it's not too big. It'll go down like so. And it depends. I mean, some people like theirs a little further up their arm. But that is so cute. See that? I love it. I really like that I decorated my little hooks. So there's my bracelet. Show you the big vision version. There it is. Isn't that beautiful? I really like this. And I really am glad I picked this bead because it is cute. Okay, there it is. Quick and easy coil. Just coiling the entire 3 or so yards of wire to make a band. Then you make your hook on the end. You can add a bead if you want, or not if you don't want to. You can add a bead cap if you want to. I did not add the bead cap on here. I didn't really need it. I added a little cap on this one just to give it a more decorative touch. You can't even see it, but it is on there. And because this is also a bigger expanse of wire, and it leaves a bigger opening there. So I wanted the cap to cover it up, but this is a smaller one and the bead covers it. So it's not really necessary to have it. Between the bead and the spiral, you can't really see the little opening in my wire, in my coil. But isn't that lovely? It matches my shirt. Yay! It matches my shirt and it goes with my earrings. I really love it. I get so carried away with my jewelry. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, that's it. I hope this didn't take too long. I don't know how long I've been on camera, but I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know whether or not you did. I'm getting more pictures of things that people have made on past videos, and that always makes me very happy to see what people do with the videos, because 9 times out of 10, they do what I do. They take something that they've seen a picture of or maybe seen a video of, and then they just add to it and add to it and add to it. They put their own stamp on it, their own creative touches to it, and they turn it into something that I never would have thought of. So anyway, I am so glad to give you, if nothing else, a starting point, a jumping off point that you can go and just run with it as fast as you can in a completely opposite direction. But you do what you want. I want to see your creativity and what you take these what you take these videos to. I'm losing my train of thought. How you use these videos to develop your own creativity is what I wanted to say. I want to see that. I miss that in my classroom. I would always come out of my classes absolutely amazed at the things that people did with basic instruction. That always made my day. And it makes my day when you show me pictures. So please let me know whether or not you liked it, how you liked it, how hard you laughed at my gaffe when I tried to get the bracelet, when I tried to get my bracelet on the wrong one. I know you're laughing at me. I don't care. It's fun. So anyway, have a great week, wherever we are in the week when you see this, and enjoy yourself. Please come back, and I will see you, or actually you will see me next time. Bye-bye.